Okay, so everyone switching languages from German to English because we're talking to Patrick O'Hagan from Wizkids. Hey,
Ja.
hello, and thank you for taking the time.
Of course, ja, und ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
Oh.
Ich habe 3 Jahre Hauptschule, so, but I understand more than I speak these days.
Das ist sogar ziemlich gut, das Deutsch.
Ah, danke.
We're probably still going to do it in English just to
That's probably
make sure
better.
there's no misunderstanding or anything as it happens. Yeah, we're going to talk about the specialized bits of Wizkids who are dealing with the miniature sets and with all the role-playing kits and stuff that you are producing, because Wizkids, of course, is a lot more, but we are here, the tabletop RPG nerdy scene, I guess.
No. The way we talk about it is that Wizkids is 3 companies almost. Okay. We have the board game division, and we make amazing board games and very fun things. We have the Hero Clicks and game division, if you think about it. And that is making, obviously, comic book heroes, but also wrestling. And it's a whole game, of course, with miniatures. And then there is the division that's just RPGs, which I lead, which is everything to do with accessories and lifestyle engagement for a majority of D&D and Pathfinder, Paizo, so Pathfinder and Starfinder games. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my division, and I think that's what I'm obviously able to talk about, which is all of the role-playing fantasy game miniatures that we're coming out with and working on.
Okay, and there's a lot that you've just unveiled or that are have just hit markets, and
Correct.
One big thing I'd like to talk about is that you have started with your own line of dungeon tiles sets.
Yes. So let's talk about that. Back in August, we released Warlock tiles. So if you think about it, we make things, like I said, for Dungeons & Dragons. We make things for Paizo and Pathfinder and Starfinder. We also make, to your point, a number of items that are Wizkids branded. So in August, we launched Warlock tiles. We came out with the first launch with the kind of half walls. We came out with 7 different products. And those 7 products range from the kind of base sets, which are the dungeon tiles and the town and village, which is modeling, of course, very traditional medieval European wattle and daub type environments that you would find anywhere in Europe, right? Well, not anywhere, but you know what I'm saying. In the Western Europe, France, Germany, Spain, England. And so we launched that with dungeon dressings and stairs and really kind of launching big. I can say that in the next month, so actually in a couple weeks, we launched the next version of that, which is the full wall category. So if you think about it, many people talk to us about what's on the market today. Mm-hmm. And what's on the market today are wonderful, I would say, tile structures like Dwarven Forge, right? We know what Dwarven Forge is. They're wonderful. They're amazing. They're high detail. They're expensive and they're hard to find if you think about it. They're only available online too. And one of the things that when we launched this, I'm not sure if you heard this, is that we are very dedicated to focusing on retail and retail stores, right? Keeping game stores in business. And so our focus on this is to create Warlock to make sure we sell within stores and have availability and have in stock. But to answer your question, in the next year, you're going to see an explosion of tiles from us. And I said explosion, I mean just so much. So coming in next month, we have the full wall. We have 2 new products coming out. Actually, 4 new products coming out. But in effect, they're all supporting a full wall kind of expansion, the kind of full wall look of what our tiles will look like. Mm-hmm. In January, we're coming out with an expansion on the kind of half wall. Yeah. And that expansion, if you think about it, is about corners and curves. Because right now, what we released is kind of all right angles. They're all, they're all kind of
very
right
classic
angles.
Dungeon. Everything is right angles.
Very classic dungeon. Yeah. But what if I want to make a tower? What if I want to make an angle or, So we're coming out with 4 products just focused on that. We have 2 products for the dungeon side, which is corners. And then we have one for curves, right? So, and then we have one for the town, one for corners and curves as well. And those come out January, I would say probably end of January. And they're really focused on, like you said, expanding that line. In fact, they're going to be in green boxes because really what we've done to really, I think, focus on the consumer, but also the retailer, is we have 3 basically SKUs in the line. We'll have an accessory SKU, which is $50 US, which who knows what that translates to euros, but you know what I'm saying. It all depends.
Depends also what's going to happen in the US over the next few months. But
yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yeah, we won't talk about that.
No, let's talk about dungeons.
Because we could talk about Angela, right?
Well, she's saying goodbye too. So
I know. I'm sad to see her go too. But the focus is, so we have the accessories, which are $50 US. We have the expansions. Now, expansions are things that you do where you were saying you need a base set. And those are going to be $80 US. And then finally, we have base sets that are $130, except for the launch ones. So the ones we came out with, we're going to keep at a low price to get people to be able to afford it, like it, engage with it, etc. So those come out. And so they're going to be all different color boxes. We're going to keep to the 3 basically price points. And we're just going to have a lot of different things. So in January, like I said, we're having the expansions for corners and curves, so 4 SKUs. And then additionally, because one of the things, I'm an avid role-playing gamer myself, as you could probably imagine. And one of the things that we're doing is we have actually a market town square. So we're coming out with tiles. If you're familiar with Legos, I think most Europeans are.
I guess every European kid.
I'm a Lego freak myself, right? So I've done is, remember when we were little, we used to build a little tiles on the floor, and we'd have the little road tiles. Well, I used that same idea, and I said, well, what if we did that for a town? So we have road tiles, and we have cobblestones, and we have gutters, and we have roundabouts and dead ends. And so what you're going to be able to do with little 2-inch by 2-inch tiles is actually create a whole town or village based on what the DM or players are engaging with. So that also comes out in January.
Are they going to be to the same scale? Because we're saying 2-inch by 2-inch?
Oh, yes, 100% same scale. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to be able to put your buildings on top of it, but you're going to be able to build a road or a network. And so if you think about it, it's called Market. It's Market Town Square. It's $130. And along with it, we're having an accessory for, basically, you can think about it as Town Square. So, think of any medieval European town square, where you have the market stalls, where you have the water fountain, where you have the hanging, where you have the guillotine, fun things like that, right?
All the lovely things that bring the family together.
But the history. It is what brought the family together, right?
Absolutely.
Church and hangings. And so, so we have that, and that's all coming out in January. And then in February, we're taking, I don't know if you're familiar with our unpainted line of deep cuts, where we have the townsfolk.
Deep cut miniatures. I may have a pile of shame.
You may have a pile of them. That's wonderful. So what we're doing is we're coming out with a painted version of those townspeople so that you can engage. Because, no one, I hate to say this, you want to paint your own characters, but sometimes it's not too exciting to paint, I don't know, a merchant or a, you know what I'm saying, a sweeper or I'm not saying I don't or you do, but I'm just saying we're coming out with an option so you don't have to paint them. And that comes out in February. And then I'll be honest with you, we're just coming out with so much. So then we have the 1-inch, because we talked about having the corners and curves. And then we're coming out with 1-inch, and the 1-inch will kind of, again, fill in the gaps, like you said so nicely on the first release. So we're going to have a 1-inch dungeon tile, a 1-inch town and country or town and village, right? And then we have so that comes out in April. And then in June, we have caves, and it's really a reimagination of caves. So think of a cavern with walls, but it's all modular. So we're going with that modular look where you can place them, you can stack them. There's bridges, there's stalactites that are modular. There's lots and lots of dungeon dressings that enable you to do that. And we're coming out with Battlemats, so you can actually put the actual caverns on them. So like, think of lava, think of water, think of, things like that. And so we're coming out with all of these things, and that's coming out in June. So the cavern set kind of with 2 different accessories for dungeon dressings, as well as Battlemats, that comes out in June. And then finally, we have sewers that comes out in October, November. So think of Parisian sewers. And I know I'm not sure if you've been to, I've been lucky enough to actually go through the Parisian sewers. And so you know what I'm talking about. They're really creepy.
I've been in the catacombs.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they connect to the sewers in a few places.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Yes, they do. Yes. So again, think of that. And that's really where our focus is. And that's just the start of where we're going to. But you can imagine we're really kind of focusing on the expansion. And each base set will have a dungeon dressing. So there'll be lots and lots of dungeon dressings associated with that. But that's what's coming out with Warlock. Lots and lots of stuff, right?
Okay, especially the dungeon dressings. I like the aspect of kind of having my little place that I can put all the tiny accessories in and make it kind of a lived-in dungeon where the people can actually say, I want to look at that. So there's going to be one new one for each of these base sets, or are there going to be even more?
Even more. So usually
there can be so many themes.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So with the cavern set, we're coming out with two different dungeon dressings. One which is focused on like pools and rocks and pillars and mushrooms and gemstones. You know, you can imagine if you're underground and you're in a fantasy realm, you want to have gemstones and nodes of gems and pretty things, right?
Are they going to be see-through?
Some of them will be see-through. They're all going to be painted in a crystalline. So again, it goes back to they're going to be painted so that you can shine a light through them. We're not planning on LEDs on some of these, not yet. Even though you could put a light underneath them to kind of have that effect. Because we're trying to keep that price point, which is the $50 price point, very intact. One of the things I haven't talked about. So you asked a question: will all the base sets come out with dungeon dressings?
Yeah.
Yes, and more than likely more than one. So right now the plan is for the caverns to come out with 2 and the sewers to come out with 2. Right? People love dungeon dressings, and so the reason why we're creating all these is that you don't have to actually buy the base set to actually enjoy and buy the dungeon dressings, and we're actually seeing that in the sales of our big launches, that our dungeon dressing SKU is very popular. And that's not surprising, because those are applicable to any game table for any game system. So that could be, the Swatza Auga, right? It could be D&D. It could be, it could be anything, right? And so that's the kind of core of what we're trying to build. It's just a really focused entity for role-playing games, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that we're doing in that line is we're really investing in technology. So I don't know if you've seen the SKU for the summoning circle, where we had an LED.
Yeah, with the bonfire and the 3 pillars. That actually
not that one. I'm actually talking about the one where you had skins that you put on top that you could change the color.
Yeah, so, I haven't seen them myself. Because I haven't been in a shop. You
should send me your address, and I'll send you one.
I will not say no to that, sir. Not that I can
have
be
my email
but...
address. Send me your email address, and we'll get you one. But here's the thing: think of LED tech. Think of walls. Think of invisible. Like when you're walking across the thing. What if one of the walls was a secret door, and the game master clicks a little thing to actually when you see it, you click it. You can't see that it's an invisible door, because it melds into the actual underlying text. So we're going to do wall, we're going to do doors, we're going to do moving screens, right? So you think of an LED light where you just can put the miniatures on top of it. Think of a pool. Think of things like that, acid flow. So we have a lot of really focus on the technology of the game as well, just utilizing simple tech, battery, rechargeable, lithium batteries, that kind of thing, where it hopefully will be very, very simple to actually bring to your table. Because here's the thing: when we started constructing the Warlock system, our core goal was table play, right? And so if you can't put it on the table in seconds or minutes, well, then you're not going to use it. And so that's really the kind of core focus that we have for a lot of the Warlock, is how is it deployable on the table where the game master doesn't have to spend an inordinate amount of time to actually prepare for it, right? So. Yeah.
Since we are talking about how easy it is to set up, and we've been talking about Legos, well, how do all these things clip together? What kind of system are you using for them?
So we actually have a Warlock clip. And so one of the things that we launched with on the original one, and I don't have any of it with me, and I'm sorry. Not in a way.
Yeah, I know you're taking time out of your free time, and this is not supposed to be work.
No, this is my job, right? I get to make toys all day long. But we have this little clip, and it's a tiny little clip, and it really engages. Now, the clip that we launched with was very strong. In fact, we use very, very durable plastic. I don't know if anyone has seen the Warlock clip for the first wave that we came out with. Well, we created them so you could pick up your pieces and physically move them, and they wouldn't move around. We wanted stability so that you could even go like this, and it wouldn't go out. Well, people didn't like that as much. And so what we did is we pre-launched, realized that we needed to have an alternative clip. And then right at launch, I think we realized that that clip would need to be the standard clip. And so we have this very flexible nylon clip that is almost indestructible, that clips basically into the base. And so you can see, so think of this as the tile, it clips into here. So basically it's almost like you have a clipping system where you can just clip it and then hold two different tiles together. And that clip is the standard that we're going to use for clips. Now, there are some instances where clips won't make sense. Like if I'm building a cavern system, I may not want to have a whole clipping because it's about, it's about putting the pieces down. It's about the stackability. You may just want to actually deploy that on the actual table versus sewers, which are definitely clippable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then in 22, we're coming out with a whole line of additional things. So what we dedicated to our consumers as well as retailers when we launched this and talked about it at our Gamma show in Reno, Nevada back in March. This is right before COVID. My last show before we were on lockdown was that we were going to have an active and very, very aggressive schedule to get people things like, what about like you're in Europe, European history, I'm guessing better than I do. But you can imagine all of these hamlets and little tiny villages. And so we want to build like dirt roads in villages. We want to have a whole wilderness setting. We want to have waterfalls and stackable things that you can do. And those are coming in 22. And then of course, castles. What about modular castles? So you can imagine all the different things that we're working on to really create a whole tile system that is really simplistic and playable. So that's Warlock.
And in 22, we're also going to get nature parts, so we can kind of have our overland situations and everything.
Yeah.
Very good. I also need to ask about the different miniature, the Heroes of the Realms, and also the deep cut things. What is coming out next for those lines? Because I've just seen that, of course, for Frost Maiden and for Strahd, for D&D, there's been new things.
So let's talk about Icons of the Realms, because the first question we talked about was Icons of the Realms. So we just came out with 2 Strahd box sets, right? That is out now, and those are really doing well. In fact, the fact they're doing so well, we're thinking of additional Strahd box sets, right? Not initially, not right now, but we're working on them now. The next thing that comes out in the Idols of the Realms after the Rime of Frost Maiden is our Things and Talents set. And that comes out in 3 weeks. It's the next big D&D box set. So they come in big boxes. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it's a streaming. It's called the Gallant Goblin, Gallant Goblin.
I'm actually not.
Yeah, look them up. They do really, really high production unboxing videos for products. And they're fun, and they give you a lot of history, and they do more than just Wizkids. They do lots of different brands. But Things and Talons is the next box set that comes out November 11th, and it's the premium in that is a big, very large purple worm, right? So where you can actually put a character in the purple worm, and there's just tons, and there's dragons and flail snails, and there's a night walker, right? So there's lots of really fun, evil, amazing things to put against your characters. That comes out in November, and then in March, and then of course we have there's just so much. I guess one of the things that you asked is like, what's coming?
Yeah, what's coming?
The question is more like what's not coming. And so if you think about it, sorry, my friend is. Yeah, the question is really what's not coming. And so we have a gargantuan white dragon coming in January. We have the first series of demons and devils and archdevils coming out. So we have Orcus coming out in January. We have let's see. So the Orcus comes out in January. Then we have another Demon Lord coming out in June, and then we have another Archdevil. So there's basically just huge amounts of sets. We have 2D miniatures. So one of the things that we're addressing is cost, because miniatures can be very expensive. And so if you think about it, we're coming out with a whole line of Dungeons and Dragons acrylic 2D minis. The first ones are to focus on the Essentials kit. That comes out in January. Or actually, that's out now. The Idols of the Realm, so they're called Idols of the Realm versus Icons of the Realm.
Versus Icons. And there's like standees 2D?
Yeah, they're standee. So but they're all acrylic. So they're very, very high-end acrylic. So it's not thin plastic. It's very thick. And we just actually take the D&D Mini and we squish it down. So we sculpt it in 3D and we flatten it down so it looks really nice. And so you'll have things like dragons and beholders and characters. And so those are going to start coming out. And then, of course, in March, and I'm not telling you everything, I'm just telling you kind of the big things. By March, we have the next large D&D set that comes out. And that is Boneyard. And that's everything undead, creepy, crawly. Think Draco-liches, think oozes, think, so it's basically an undead ooze set. So it's,
Did you say Draco-lich? We're getting a
Draco-lich. Yeah, Draco-lich. Yeah. Two of them. We have
more
a blue
ways
and
to
a
kill
green
all the players.
So that's what comes out, and that's just D&D. And then, of course, for Pathfinder, we have the Pathfinder set, which is Darklands Rising, which comes out in April. And that's an amazing set that comes out with a gargantuan gold dragon that is just beautiful. And it is truly amazing. So there's just so much coming out for both those lines. And that's just April. You can imagine by the end of the year, we're going to have and create more product than we ever have in our history as a company for D&D and for Pathfinder.
And also bigger products, because as you mentioned several times, you've reached the Gargantuan dragon stage now.
Yes, we have. The white Gargantuan comes out, Aventurace. She comes out. She's a Gargantuan white dragon.
Right. From Frostmaiden.
Believe me, it's hard for me to say it, but I've said it so many times.
I think it's for everyone.
Yes, I know.
Does she have her tiny dead rider?
She does. Oh, yeah, and it's removable.
Very nice.
So the Aventurace has, if you're familiar with we basically create a little plastic riding strap for her. So you can actually take that off. So she has her dead wizard on the back, and you can take the dead wizard off if you want to play her in a different way. So that comes out. She comes out in January, and believe me, it is our biggest dragon that we've come out with.
Compared to the giant dragons, how much bigger is Gargantuan?
So this always comes up. Like, what happened is that the dragons that we produced, I would say 3 to 4 years ago, were inconsistent in sizing. And I say inconsistent. Sometimes they were this big, sometimes they were this big, and they were the same size category. What we worked on with Wizards of the Coast to actually standardize the size of dragons. And dragons are just a little bigger. And so they still are, Gargantuan are still Gargantuan, but they're on the larger side of Gargantuan. And the same thing with huge, right? So if you have a huge figure is supposed to be on a 75 millimeter base, but dragons are just too big. So they are on a 100 millimeter bases. And so if you think about it, typically huge figure should be on 75 and Gargantuan should be on 100 millimeter, right? However, dragons break that rule. And they break the rule because we've standardized and we make sure that all the dragons are relatively proportionate to how large they should be. And so Gargantuan dragons now are on a 200 millimeter base. Even though they're still Gargantuan, they're just larger. And that shouldn't surprise anyone. What's that? Yeah, 200 millimeters. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you think about it, the game is called Dungeons and Dragons. And so it shouldn't surprise anyone that dragons are a little bit bigger. And but yeah, that's we're coming out with 3 Gargantuan dragons this year. And one is quite sizable. And that's all I'll say on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a question from chat, a specific one, and if I've overheard that, I'm sorry. But will the Warlock curve and angle sets, will they match the half-size walls or the full-size? Half-size.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as a standard, we're going to come out with a half first and then see how it does. And then determine. Really, the full wall set comes out only next month. And then if those do really well, then we're going to have to make a hard decision to potentially produce things in half wall size as well as full wall size. And that will be something that we focus on after we assess how well our full walls do. So if you really want full walls, and anyone out there who wants full walls, will buy them, because that will determine our kind of expansion plan for those.
How more you're going to see of that size.
Exactly. Yeah.
I also would like to because you said anything role-playing or anything like let's put it like more like decoration or kind of vanity items, because
oh god,
you have things like Hand and Eye of Vecna.
Correct. That comes out in January.
Who came up with that? I mean, to do this as a product.
You know, have you seen our lifestyles, our big heads, the kind of the trophy plaque?
Yeah, the dragon head.
Yeah. We did those, and those were very popular.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, if we're going to do dragon heads, why wouldn't we do artifacts? And so we call these lifestyle, but in reality, they're just Dungeons and Dragons artifacts. And so the first one is the Hand and Eye of Vecna that comes out in January. But I can tell you to be followed with very closely with the additional artifacts. And so you can imagine things like the Orb of Dragonkind, the Rod of Seven Parts, right? The Staff of the Magi. What if we created an entire Staff of the Magi that you award to people, or think of a Wand of Orcus, or any type of artifact that we can make life size, we're going to make it. And it's really focused right now on artifacts and legendary items. So we're going to be making life size versions of those, right? And that's for D&D. And then, of course, we're coming out with the owlbear head, which is a big, huge owlbear trophy plaque. That comes out in January as well. Yeah, I wish I had pictures, but you can find pictures online. Meaning, I don't have one with me. It's in my office in Seattle.
Dang, I have a weakness for owlbears.
There we go. That's $450. The Hand and Eye of Vecna is, I think, $125 US. And then you can imagine there are just so many things we can do when it comes to that kind of thing. So we're going to be exploding that line very fast, including just what we're doing is we have lines of game product, we have lines of miniature product, right, for D&D and for Pathfinder and Starfinder. But we're going to be really exploding it. And one of the key things that you're going to see, I don't know if you've seen pictures of the Pathfinder goblin, the life-size goblin. The goblin is 3 feet tall, and it is so amazing. It really is. It has a little sword. It has it just is creepy, and it's really, really sturdy. So it's a 3 foot little goblin. So the success of that, because that's not next month, but it's doing already very well. So you can imagine we're going to expand on that line with Pathfinder as well. So just so many things when it comes to that lifestyle. And there's things I can't talk about yet, but we're also, one of the things that I think we announced at a recent trade show is that there is more coming. We are working with Wizards to expand our licensing and categories. And there is just, I can't go into any detail of what that is, but you can imagine we're in miniatures, we're in lifestyle creation, we're in trophy plaques and lifestyle figures. What else is there? Well, there's tons. And so we're going to be expanding on all those things, which is going to be fun.
Wow. I never thought I'd live in a time where actually there was a thing like lifestyle items, life-sized items from Dungeons and Dragons to decorate your place with.
But it's here.
Yeah, but it's happened. That's great. It's no longer just some people meeting with a book in the cellar, but you can geek out all over.
Yeah. And I can say another thing. I mean, for your European and German specifically, we know that distribution in Germany has been tough to get the products, right? We're working on many different fronts with our Asmodee partners in Bavaria and our HEO partner. We have partners at HEO. We have partners with Asmodee, if you're familiar with Blackfire. I'm sure most of you are. We're really working with them to expand. We're also, and again, you know how I always want to say support local. But sometimes it's just not always possible. And so we're working with Wizards of the Coast to actually build a shop as well that you can buy direct things from and it's dndmini.com. We've been in soft launch for, I want to say, the last 3 weeks, but now it's on Wizards of the Coast page for the D&D page, and we've also partnered with a low-cost shipper so that we can ship things to Germany relatively inexpensive.
Okay.
So
European friendly.
European friendly. It's very European friendly. In fact, right now it's, I think, Germany, France, UK, but very soon it'll be all of the Western European and EU, as well as Central Europe, as well as some of the parts of Southern and even Eastern Europe, right? So things are coming, and I know it's available for Germany and France and the UK now, but it's D&D, DN as in Nancy, D, mini.com. Yeah. Okay. So again, that's where you can get early products. Again, I always want to focus. Go to your store first. Keep the stores in business because that is the lifeblood And that's where a lot of really cool stuff is. It's live now. So if you're looking at it, you can see it. It'll pop up with little Yeti tykes and lots of little fun things.
I'm absolutely looking for. That's one reason to look forward to 2021 with all the things coming up.
So many things.
I have to say thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciated that you sat down and talked with us. It was a tour de force for things to come, and I'm going to work on my pronunciation of Arveaturas. You won't even. I can't. You came up with that name, Chris Perkins. What are you doing?
No. Ed Greenwood did. Ed Greenwood came up with the name.
Oh, she's a Greenwood one. Okay.
Yeah. It's Averturace. So it says Averturace, and I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but that's what I did say.
I'm going to try.
So hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy your free time. Have a great Sunday, and thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, welcome to our second day at the Digital Spiel, and we're starting off in English today because we are talking to Tamsin and Matt, and we're going to talk about Battlemats because that's what they do. Hello!
Hello, thank you for having us.
Today because we are talking to Nico, quickly, we have feedback. I'm sorry, I have to call back our technology person. I think I've heard it in the background. Now everything is okay, I hope. Nico, quickly, we have feedback. I'm sorry. No, we still back our technology person. He's going to be back in a second. Anyway, what we're doing is we're going to talk about your Battlemat projects. He's going to be back in a second. Anyway, what we're doing is Okay. Yeah. Now we shouldn't have any feedback. You can still hear me? Everything okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
And I can hear you. Very good. I'm so sorry. Okay. We are going to talk about Battlemats, and the two things I have here and that we are going to open up is the Giant Book of Battlemats Volume 2 and the Big Book of Battlemats Volume 2, which kind of suggests that there was a Volume 1.
Yes, indeed there was.
Yeah, so the Volume 1 of both the Big Book and the Giant Book were our first products, really. In the book range.
Back in 2018?
2018, yeah.
2018. Yeah, but you've been working with Battlemats and with things to enliven basically your tabletop gaming for quite some time now, right?
Yeah, I think 2015 is when we first started doing PVC wargame and skirmish mats. And then we started to transition those over to RPG products.
Yeah, Matt's been a dungeon master for... Oh, blimey,
a long time.
over 30 years now, so it's a subject very close to our hearts, and yeah, we love designing and making the maps, and we use them at home as well.
Okay, so I haven't opened them up yet, but what I did is I made a cut up here because we don't want to handle sharp objects live on camera because that's only asking for trouble. But we're going to look at these while we talk about your projects and what's going on. Because these, like other projects of yours, they were kickstarted, right?
These ones weren't actually. The Volume 1, the Giant Book was kickstarted, but these ones we were happy to put straight into retail.
Okay. So, first page is a very general one. And then we're slowly moving into other spaces. When you're working on these, I'm always curious on how you create the assets for this. So when we look at this grass, what is it actually that you used for creating all these backgrounds?
A variety of textures, really. So I do a mix of photography. So whenever we travel, I used to carry like an SLR, but now the phone camera is good enough to get good enough quality images. So I'll quite often sort of hang back on family walks and things and take pictures of the ground, and collect those up and make those into textures. And there's also resources online where you can get textures and the like, and it's essentially mixing those to get the right thing at the right scale.
Yeah, considering how Tamsin had to laugh when you said that you keep taking pictures.
Yeah.
I can imagine him always hanging behind you and pointing the camera at the ground, and everyone else is slightly baffled what he's doing.
Yes.
I do have to edit my feet out of quite a few of the textures.
When you work on such a product as these books, and you have several ones out now with different themes, so what we're looking at here is basically general fantasy, but you've also got others, right?
We do, yeah.
Yes, we've got science fiction and also cyberpunk as well, which was great fun to design. Cyberpunk, really colourful.
Yeah, lots of neon, lots of water.
Yeah.
Well, puddles.
And it's yes, obviously we've got a cyberpunk 2077 coming out soon as well, which we can't wait for that. So yes, we're really looking forward to it to embrace cyberpunk.
When you put these books together, how do you decide what kind of maps go in there? Because the idea is that people can use them for all kinds of sessions and for all kinds of campaigns. So I guess it can't be too specific, right?
Yeah, we start off with a list, like much longer than the available space in the book. So the book there is 62 pages. So essentially, like 31 map spreads. Mm-hmm. And we'll kind of narrow it down and make sure there's a mix of indoor, outdoor.
We have rows about caves. Left to his own devices, Matt would design an entire book at least on just cave systems. But ultimately, everything we do is system agnostic, so as many fantasy campaigns as possible. And I think reusability is something we really look for as well. So we'll go for the commonly used encounter zones, but we'll try and make them as adaptable as possible. So when people are playing through, that they have a lot of different options and it can be used for more than one campaign.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a question in chat. What size is the giant book?
The giant is A3 per page, so A2 when it's opened. And the smaller big book is A4, open to A4.
And what I noticed when I looked at 2 pages, wait, these ones, I can see there's 2 tunnels leaving these 2 pages, and they would basically line up with these 2. So basically you can take 2 of these and put them together to get a 1.
Yes, you can line them up. We have done some of the key maps in there are modular. So yes, those cave systems do line up rather nicely. They also line up with the volume 1s as well. So you can have 2 volume 2s or 2 volume 1s or 1 volume 1, 1 volume 2, and then you can create from there.
At some point you forgot the whole table covered in caves. If it goes.
We do that quite often, yes.
One of the bonuses of A3 and A4 is one of the sides is pretty much also 12 inches, which is the other format we use for our modular book sets.
So yeah, everything we do lines up pretty much.
Yeah, lots of them work together.
Okay, but it must be quite a nightmare to work with the different sizes and with the different sizings overseas and in Europe.
There's a lot of sizing things up because if we can make them match and be modular, we will. It isn't always the case.
I think it's we always work with a 1-inch square, as you can see on the designs, which we tend to scale everything about 5 foot to 1 inch, which is standard. Yeah. So we think as long as you can keep the 1-inch square on there and make sure there's enough room, I think it's everything else you can work around. And I'm also guessing then you've already talked about the cyberpunk book, and now I'm kind of imagining Matt going to 80s malls and things like that and trying to get reference pictures. Where do you come up with this science fiction assets and with the science fiction textures?
Well, a lot of the cyber things like neon glows and the like, so more special effects in Photoshop than photo source for a lot of those. Yes, because all our designs are top down, we have used particularly in our cyberpunk books a lot of puddles on the ground to reflect all the lights that are on the surrounding features, so you can get a real feel for what's on the street while only seeing it directly down.
Oh, okay, that's a nice trick. I'm now going to, hopefully not too loud, open up the big book of Battlemats. Someone's already getting out the playthings. A Sarah Rock. You want a Sarah Rock on here? Okay, if you want to. Okay. So, in terms of scaling, when we look at the smaller ones, but they absolutely compare to the bigger one as you're going with the usual 1-inch size. So how do you scale up and down? And how do you decide where to put which? Or is this just kind of halving each page that you have in the giant one?
It kind of depends. Some of them are redraws, so yeah, they use the same sort of like style as the larger map, but the layout's so different to fit the smaller book. We'll redraw it. Some of them are essentially sections, just sort of like sized. So yeah, like that particular one there is a redraw of the one in the giant book, because it's the same sort of room, but the way the assets and things work is that's kind of like a miniaturized version. So the main floors, I think about 2 or 4 squares narrower.
Yeah, I think it's important that we can reflect in the smaller book really adaptable, usable encounter areas. So we'll tweak the maps to make sure that we don't try and put in too many features or too much small areas. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get the big base monsters out, which is always fun.
Yeah, and looking at this, we can actually really nicely compare. We've got the big circus, and we've got the baby circus.
Yes.
But okay, there's like 5 squares here in between these, and there's 4. So actually, our giant dragon can squeeze in between these two. I get it, yeah.
So the pillars have been taken out for the smaller book, and there's a sort of less audience seating around the edge, but enough space to still fit sort of large and huge bases.
You can still have a very nice fight in there.
Yeah. Are you playtesting these, and how are you doing this? So is kind of your own role-playing group always the ones who get to see the maps first and try them out?
Yeah, so I mean, before the current sort of lockdowns and things, I used to run games at a friend's house, and he's got prototypes of all of our books on a shelf there, and everything we've released is also there, so I tend to use those when playing around there. We also do a family D&D game, and
yeah, we test everything out very thoroughly before it makes it into the books.
Family game sounds great, so best way to get more people to play is to grab your family, get them to try it out.
Well, that's it. We've got a 9-year-old, and she particularly likes being able to see what's happening and where things are.
Oh yeah, I totally get that. And having played with children before and younger people, having something to actually play with physically is always a great help to get them to visualize and to draw them in. And I would like people to notice that in this map, which is to basically, it's a top-down like everything else, but you can see the light coming in through colored glass. You can actually see the colored glass, and basically what you can't see on the map is there as light. That is a very nice idea. I like it. Looking at these, I also need to ask what you're working on right now, because what is next?
So the current things on the drawing table are all wilderness-based maps. Mm-hmm. That's for a planned Kickstarter early next year, which will be our 3rd set of modular books, which are sets of books. They come as a pair, and they take the idea that each map works with each other map a bit further, and they're designed specifically to work together and make bigger play areas out of the 2 books.
Yes, so that's going to be kickstarting around February, which is very exciting. And yes, like Matt said, that's entirely wilderness-based locations. And that's the 3rd book in a trilogy. The first one was our dungeon book, and then Towns and Taverns, which is that Kickstarter's fulfilling in the next month. And then as soon as that's done, we are kickstarting again.
Towns and Taverns. That's cute. Oh, look at this. Tans. Oh.
So yeah, we try and have some fun with our maps as well. It's nice to put in some things which sort of fire the imagination a little bit. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Treetop Village. I think when we did the first book, we were listening to lots of reviews and things, and like people would often think, like what's not in the book. And one of the things that came up, I always remember someone saying, "I thought we should have a Treetop Village," and thought, "That'll go on the list." I think we should have a Treetop Village.
So now we have a Treetop Village.
Yeah,
it's very specific, but a lot of people wanted it, so everyone's looking forward to doing Ewoks and
it's very Robin Hood, I think, as well.
So do you get a lot of things like that people kind of tell you what is the one thing that they would miss or that they would love to have for their campaigns apart from treetop villages?
We do. We're really lucky in that we have a really nice family of followers on Kickstarter and also on our social media, and they love to tell us all about their adventures and what they're doing at the moment and what maps they would love to see us draw next. So we're very lucky in that regard. We get lots and lots of feedback.
Yeah, it's great to have loads of ideas sort of sat on the to-do list.
And do you also get to see people tag you when they use them? So do you get to see what people actually then kind of use them for?
We are lucky enough. We see some amazing setups, particularly at the moment. A lot of people have gone online, but of course they still enjoy using all their physical products as well. So we've seen some brilliant setups involving cameras over books with all the miniatures out, so the DM can still run the game, but then everyone's sort of on Zoom or Skype watching that happen. So everyone's still playing together, even though they can't make it all into the same room necessarily. So that's really nice to see.
Yeah, it's like the books are there with their own cameras and extra player just to sort of like show the scene.
So there's then one person who's just moving along the pieces and using everything for the rest. It's such a lovely hobby, and that people can get really crafty and they can paint their own characters, make their own scenery. So it's just lovely to see people augmenting our books with the things they've made themselves. It's absolutely lovely. Yeah. And one thing, as everyone can see, as it says on the back side, 16 wipe clean Battlemat pages. So on these you can also doodle and add your own stuff with the wipe away Sharpie, or whatever is it called in English? Well, a pen.
Whiteboard markers.
Yeah, anything non-permanent, so whiteboard marker or a non-permanent wet marker. And yes, because they're all laminated, you can write on them, you can draw buildings, doors, roofs, furniture, anything you like, and it will wipe straight off. And it just helps keep using the book, so you can use it for 3 different encounters and use the same page, and it can be completely different each time.
When and how did you get this idea to, well, we print battle maps and we play ourselves? How about a book? Because by now there's a few out there who work similar, but I don't think I have seen any before you started doing these. I might be wrong because I never only know everything, but I think you were the first ones.
I think we were the first, yes. Well, it's basically because Matt travels for his game. He DMs at our friend's house, who's about a half-hour walk up the hill from where we live. And he was always having to pack his bag full of all these huge roll mats, and they just didn't all fit. So we wanted a solution where he could carry a lot of maps with him, but that it fitted in a bag with his rule books. And then we came up with the book idea, and it all sort of went from there.
Yeah, I did do a lot of searching around when we did our first sort of products to make sure there wasn't anything already out there, and I couldn't find anything.
So we think we probably were the first. Yes, we're lucky enough to be able to say that.
It's I think that's one of the rarest things to do today, to be the first people to come up with an idea and actually put it into play and produce it. Which are the ones you've got basically the most feedback or the most callbacks from people to? The fantasy ones? I'm just curious, the fantasy ones or more like the cyberpunky science fiction ones? What do you use people most?
It's very tricky because fantasy, obviously, everyone plays fantasy encounters and campaigns. It's really, really popular. But there, on the other side, there's a lot out there for fantasy in terms of both physical maps and also online. Whereas if you're playing a sci-fi game or a cyberpunk game, there's a lot less out there. So I think our fantasy maps are always really well received, and we get lots and lots of feedback and sales on those. But when we do produce something like the cyberpunk or the sci-fi maps, we have a very loyal following just because they don't have that much choice, and it's lovely to be able to put out books where we know we can help those sectors and those genres as well. Yeah,
and one of the key benefits of the books is just how many maps you can get into a fairly small package. So yeah, like the cyberpunk one's a great example because there's very few cyberpunk maps out there you can get. If you get the one book, you've suddenly got 60 pages of them with lots and lots of different things covered.
Just a handy thing.
Yeah.
Have you? When you use them, I guess they do influence then how you run your game, because you think I need to play, for instance, in a kind of temple or something that this might be, and then suddenly the layout of the rooms adds to your story. Does that happen to you all? even if you are the designers?
Yeah, to a degree, for sure. I think because obviously we've got access to all of our products, we can kind of pick between them to find
I think
lots of different maps.
We do try and make it generic enough that you can use maps for a number of purposes. So we'll try and put in a mixture of, sort of larger encounter areas and smaller areas as well. So regardless of the purpose of your encounter, what you'll be using it for, it should be quite straightforward running a game through on it. So all the bases should fit in there somewhere.
Yeah, and with the pens and things, well, you can do stuff like, seal off a wall just to change the layout and have a corridor just be a corridor or something quite easily.
Oh, okay. You just if you don't want to have a door there, you can just get rid of it really quickly with marker. I kind of think that things like these are also very helpful for people who don't have the time to do really complicated setups. And as you said, for people who travel to games and things like that, have you also seen that people are just thankful because they don't have to draw their own things, or that they get inspiration just because they have the map and don't have to look around for quite some time?
Yeah, we've definitely had that feedback. People like just being able to get out, because it's either that or like they've got to quickly draw something up. So
yeah, and if you do have to stop, especially mid-game, if the party go a different direction than you're expecting and you're not prepared for it, to have to stop a thing and quickly draw out the map it's quite stressful and it's quite time consuming. So just having something like one of these to hand means that you can just keep everything rolling quite smoothly. And of course, particularly at the moment, everyone's so busy. Maybe you don't have like 2 or 3 hours to sit down and draw out 4 or 5 maps for your encounters for every game. And I think a lot of people like to do it for some of the big boss encounters and the culmination of their campaigns, but I know certainly Matt, even though Matt draws maps all day long, he hasn't got time to draw every map he wants for his own games.
No.
Still not. How much games do you run?
2 currently.
2 of them.
2, okay. Well, that's already a lot. And you said that you've been game mastering for quite some time. May I ask when the 2 of you started? At what age roughly playing role-playing games?
8 or 9, I think, I started. So like late 80s, we had a games workshop open up in my hometown, and I remember going with my dad and queuing up at about 5 in the morning and coming out of the D&D red box, which I think I must have had my eye on for a while to do the queuing up and go in there. But yeah. And roping friends from school into playing, like at a fairly early age.
Certainly when I met Matt a few years later, he was very much into his role play. It was the first thing he did when he came down to Brighton, which is when I met him, and he was also into LARPing, live action role play as well, which was quite funny. Yeah,
it's been a while since live action, but yeah, it was good.
Well, many years, and he sort of got me into it from that.
I hope that live action role playing is going to be back next year. So this year was hardly anything, but
it's very, very difficult this year. But yes, I remember when I first met Matt, he had many props.
Yeah, well, it's basically the same now, just the props are a little bit smaller.
We're sat in a room full of props.
Oh, I've been asked to show both backsides with the 2 sets of maps at the same time.
Yes,
so people can also...
we pop an index on the back covers just so that people can see what's in the books and find their way around them easily.
Exactly. And there you can see kind of and compare how different the cave sizes and everything look. And on the first glance, it looks almost exactly the same. But then if you look closer, you see that this one is half cave and half normal rooms, but it's a different layout, a different setup.
Froze for some reason.
It's frozen. No.
But let's improvise.
Yeah, we can just move the other camera. Who's interested in me? We want to see the battle maps. So. Hello. If you look at this one, for instance, I'm just setting it up for a second. You can see that it's half cave and half normal rooms. And in the giant version, it's also half cave and half normal rooms, but it's different size rooms, different size caves and everything. So it's a really complete redraw with the same assets. This is Really, I'm actually pretty impressed. Oh, so I can see right now that this one it directly leads over into this map and everything. Oh, this is a giant puzzle. So basically, I guess that working on these, you also got the idea to do the ones that you can always combine, the two books that you can always flip around and combine the two maps, because it already worked in this one.
I think it's just a handy thing, because I think the other nice thing about the books is, of course, they can fold completely in half, so you can play any single page individually, and then if you happen to have extra books, you can build bigger and bigger maps. So it really depends on what the encounter requires, but also how big your table is, because they get pretty big pretty quick.
I guess we have to wrap it up because we have to set up the next spot, but it was really lovely talking to you, and I'm very sorry for our cameras buzzing out on us.
Oh,
but for everyone, because
so
we've had some people in chat who are now very interested, keep an eye out for the local Battlemats, and in February you are going to start your next Kickstarter.
Yes, all our books are available in local gaming stores across Europe and America, and we're kickstarting again in February.
Okay, then.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time talking to us, and thank you for being here. It was lovely chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to what's going to come next with your absolutely lovely books. I hope you have a great weekend. Take care. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.